"Hi, sir. My mother has a ring just like yours," said the young woman in a worn uniform as she refilled Alexander Morgan's coffee, her eyes fixed on the unique gold ring with an emerald stone that adorned his left hand, the ring that had been in his family for generations, the ring that was one of a kind. Alexander Morgan, CEO of Morgan Enterprises, felt his body stiffen. The bustling Manhattan cafe around him seemed to fade into background noise as he stared at the waitress's name tag. Emma Reynolds, 22 perhaps. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and despite the dark circles under her eyes, there was a quiet dignity in her posture. She didn't look like someone who would lie for attention. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" His voice came out sharper than intended, causing several patrons at nearby tables to glance over. Emma blinked, suddenly realizing the boldness of her statement. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. It's just, my mother has a photo with a ring that looks exactly like that one. The emerald and the engravings. It caught my eye." Alexander's mind raced through possibilities. His grandfather had this ring custom-made in Italy 60 years ago. There were no replicas, no copies. It had passed from his grandfather to his father, and then to him, upon his father's death 5 years ago. "Your mother has this exact ring?" He held up his hand, the emerald catching the light. "Had," Emma corrected, her voice softening. "She passed away last year, but there's an old photograph where she's wearing it. I noticed it because I was just going through her things last weekend." She paused, shifting uncomfortably. "I really shouldn't have said anything. Can I get you anything else, sir?" Alexander checked his watch. He was already late for a board meeting where 12 executives were waiting for him to make a decision on a $300 million acquisition. Yet something about this girl's statement tugged at him. "What was your mother's name?" he asked. Catherine Reynolds. Though her maiden name was Summers," Emma replied, surprised by his continued interest. Catherine Summers. The name meant nothing to him, but Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that there was something here he needed to understand. His father, Richard Morgan, had been notoriously private about his past. "I'd like to see this photograph," he said, pulling out his business card and handing it to her. "If you're comfortable with that." Emma took the card with widened eyes as she read, "Alexander Morgan, Chief Executive Officer, Morgan Enterprises." "You're that Morgan? From the Morgan Tower?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. Alexander nodded, used to this reaction. At 35, he was one of the youngest CEOs of a Fortune 500 company, with wealth that put him firmly on the list of America's billionaires. The business press called him calculating and ruthless. His reputation was built on his ability to make cold, logical decisions without letting emotions interfere. "I don't know if it's appropriate," Emma started. "Please," Alexander interrupted. "I'm genuinely curious. Call my office and my assistant will arrange a time." He wasn't entirely sure why this mattered so much to him, but the possibility that someone else had his family's ring didn't sit right. 2 days later, Emma Reynolds stepped into the intimidating glass and steel lobby of Morgan Tower, clutching a small envelope. She felt painfully out of place in her best outfit, a simple blouse and skirt that had seemed fine until she walked past the immaculately dressed executives and assistants gliding through the lobby. The receptionist eyed her with thinly veiled suspicion, but directed her to the executive elevator when she mentioned her appointment. 62 floors up, the doors opened to reveal a reception area larger than Emma's entire apartment. "Ms. Reynolds," a polished woman greeted her. "Mr. Morgan is expecting you. This way, please." Emma followed her through a hallway lined with modern art pieces that probably cost more than she would earn in a decade. The assistant opened a door to a vast corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Alexander stood by the window, his tall frame silhouetted against the city skyline. He turned as she entered, and for a moment, Emma wondered if she had made a terrible mistake coming here. "Ms. Reynolds, thank you for coming." His voice was measured, professional. "Please sit down." Emma perched nervously on the edge of an expensive-looking chair. "I brought the photograph," she said, opening the envelope with slightly trembling hands. "It's one of the few I have of my mother when she was young." Alexander took the faded photograph. It showed a beautiful young woman with auburn hair, remarkably similar to Emma's, sitting on a beach. Her hand was raised in a wave, and there, clearly visible on her finger, was what appeared to be his family's ring. He sank into his chair, studying the image. When was this taken? 1995, according to the date on the back. She was 22 then. Emma watched his face carefully. "Mr. Morgan, why is this ring so important?" Alexander placed the photograph on his desk. "This ring has been in my family for generations. My grandfather had it made for my grandmother in Venice. It's unique. There shouldn't be another like it anywhere." "Maybe it's just similar, a coincidence," Emma suggested. "Perhaps. But Alexander didn't believe in coincidences." "What do you know about your mother's life before you were born?" Emma's expression clouded. "Not much. She never talked about it. I know she grew up in foster care. She was a single mother. My father wasn't in the picture." She hesitated. "She worked multiple jobs to support us. We never had much, but she made sure I could go to college. I'm still trying to pay off those loans, which is why I'm waiting tables while I look for something in my field." Alexander calculated quickly. If the photo was from 1995 and Emma appeared to be in her early 20s. "How old are you, Ms. Reynolds?" "I turned 23 last month." 23, born in 1999, 4 years after the photo was taken. He looked back at the image, noticing details he'd missed. The carefree smile, the youth in Catherine's face. Then his eyes caught something in the background, what looked like a private yacht. "Do you know where this photo was taken?" Emma shook her head. She never mentioned it. There are no other photos from that day. Alexander felt his phone vibrate, probably his assistant reminding him about his next meeting. But for once, the demanding schedule of a CEO seemed distant and unimportant compared to the mystery unfolding before him. "Ms. Reynolds, Emma, I'd like to investigate this further, with your permission, of course." Emma's brow furrowed. "Why does this matter so much to you?" Alexander glanced down at the emerald ring on his finger, twisting it thoughtfully. "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I intend to find out." The following week, Emma found herself inside Alexander Morgan's private car, a sleek black Bentley with tinted windows that glided through Manhattan traffic like a phantom. She fidgeted with the strap of her worn handbag, feeling out of place against the vehicle's soft leather interior. "I appreciate you agreeing to help with this investigation," Alexander said, his eyes fixed on his tablet where he reviewed company reports despite being technically off the clock for this personal mission. "I'm still not sure what exactly we're investigating," Emma replied, "or why someone like you would clear your schedule for this." Alexander looked up, his expression unreadable. "Someone like me? A billionaire CEO. Don't you have companies to buy or sell today?" Her forthrightness surprised even herself. The cafe where she worked was across from Morgan Tower, and the financial news was always on. She'd heard enough about Alexander Morgan's cutthroat business tactics to know he wasn't a man who wasted time on trivial matters. A hint of amusement flickered across his face. "I've postponed dismantling the economy until tomorrow." Emma's lips twitched. Apparently the ruthless CEO had a sense of humor, albeit a dry one. "To answer your question," he continued, his tone turning serious, "this ring is more than just jewelry. It represents my family's legacy. If there's a duplicate or if it was somehow outside our family's possession, I need to understand how." He paused. "And frankly, there's something about your mother's photograph that doesn't add up." The car pulled up to a stately building in the Upper East Side. Emma recognized it immediately from architectural magazines, the Morgan Family Foundation, housed in what was once the Morgan family mansion before they moved to more modern accommodations. "My father's personal archives are kept here," Alexander explained as they walked through the ornate lobby. Staff members nodded respectfully as he passed, eyeing Emma with curious glances. They entered a wood-paneled room that smelled of old books and furniture polish. Floor-to-ceiling shelves housed leather-bound volumes and document boxes. At the center stood a large oak table where an elderly gentleman was arranging papers. "Ms. Reynolds, this is Harold Pierce. He was my father's personal assistant for over 30 years and now manages our family archives." Harold's eyes widened slightly at the sight of Emma, though he quickly masked his reaction with a professional smile. "A pleasure to meet you, Ms. Reynolds." "Harold, we're looking into something rather specific," Alexander said, placing the photograph of Emma's mother on the table. "This was taken in 1995. The woman is wearing what appears to be my family's emerald ring." Harold picked up the photograph, his hands slightly trembling as he studied it. "I see," he said quietly. Something in his tone made Emma suspect he saw more than he was admitting. "Do you recognize her?" Alexander pressed. "I couldn't say with certainty," Harold replied carefully. "It was a long time ago and your father knew many people." Alexander frowned. "Harold, if there's something you know, perhaps we should start with the yacht. Harold interrupted, pointing to the background of the photo. That's the Artemis, your father's yacht from 1990 to 1997. He sold it after... He trailed off, glancing uncomfortably at Emma. After what? Emma asked. Harold looked to Alexander, who nodded his permission to continue. After your father's first serious heart attack, Mr. Morgan, the doctors advised him to reduce stress and simplify his life. The yacht represented his more carefree days. Alexander's jaw tightened. You're saying this photo was taken on my father's yacht? It appears so, Harold confirmed. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her. That would mean my mother knew Alexander's father? Richard Morgan? Harold busied himself with adjusting his glasses. Mr. Morgan entertained many guests on that yacht. Summer cruises along the Mediterranean were a tradition for several years. Alexander's eyes narrowed. Harold, you're being deliberately vague. What exactly was the nature of these cruises? The elderly man sighed. Your father valued his privacy, especially regarding his personal life before he married your mother. My parents married in 1997, Alexander said, more for Emma's benefit than Harold's. 2 years after this photo was taken, Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The timing, the ring, the yacht. Are you suggesting my mother and your father were... Let's not jump to conclusions, Alexander said sharply. Though his mind was clearly racing down the same path, Harold cleared his throat. Perhaps the logs would be helpful. He moved to a filing cabinet and withdrew a leather-bound book. Your father kept meticulous records of his yacht guests. They gathered around as Harold opened the logbook to the summer of 1995. There, written in elegant script under the date matching the photograph, was a list of names. And among them, Catherine Summers. She was there, Emma whispered, touching her mother's maiden name on the page. But why would she be on a billionaire's yacht? My mother was a waitress, just like me. Alexander frowned. It says here she was part of the entertainment staff. What does that mean, Harold? The older man looked distinctly uncomfortable. Your father often hired young people, students mostly, to serve as hosts, servers, and sometimes performers. Many were working their way through college. Emma's mind flashed to all the times her mother had told her education was the key to a better life, how she'd worked so hard to ensure Emma could attend college. Had Catherine been working on the yacht to fund her